All right, here we are live Friday morning, July 11th, to talk Najee Harris. Starting surgery. Don't worry, patient's not asleep on the table yet. They're being put to sleep, but we'll be done with this before I'm ready to go for surgery today. Here with Taylor. I think Najee Harris's eye injury requires a little bit of chat, questions, and talk. What we know, what we don't know, and why we are actually worried about Najee Harris to some extent. Hopefully, the worry is for no reason, but let's set the table here, Taylor. Tell us what happened on July 4th. What is it, 10 years from JPP exactly?
Exactly 10 years. We talked about it on our last pod. Yeah. So, Doc, this actually happened on July 5th, 12/18, at a July 4th party in Antioch. This is where Najee Harris went to high school. He was a big star over there. The police said that they arrived there. Multiple people were injured. Tell me your thoughts on when you found out that there was an eye injury suffered by Najee Harris in this incident.
Well, first of all, this was July 4th. It was after midnight, July 4th,
Yes,
right?
yes,
I
yes.
mean,
Being
I don't know how
super,
you guys count. I always say it's July 4th until I go to bed and wake up
that's
July
true.
5th.
Yeah,
So technically July 5th because it's after midnight, I
yeah.
think. It's not like they were firing fireworks a day later. It
No,
was
no.
going into the night
Right.
kind of thing.
Yes.
Look, obviously it was a private deal or whatever. I don't know if it was out on the street or in Najee Harris's yard or neighborhood or family neighborhood. Multiple people apparently injured, and we certainly pray for all of them. Some loose reporting about injuries to others, but we're here to talk about Najee Harris. And what we know so far is it was a fireworks incident. Why don't you read the quote from his agent?
So he had an agent that said, here specifically, I'll get it for you, Doc, right here. So we had, it said a superficial eye injury is what the exact terminology is. He said, 1 second, Doc, I'll get it for you. Internet's acting up.
Well, this
And
report
Najee
from the
Harris
agent.
was, yeah, here. Najee Harris was present at a 4th of July event where a fireworks mishap resulted in injuries to several attendees. Najee sustained a superficial eye injury during the incident, but is fully expected to be ready for the upcoming NFL season, end quote.
Okay. Well, this came late when the reports came out and Cam Inman, et cetera. Then the agent had to respond. So let's talk about what is said and not said in that very short couple of sentences.
Right.
First of all, it didn't come until it had to come. And this is the agent's job, but it is clean up on aisle 7 when someone spills something or breaks something. So how is the agent going to clean this up? He says he was present at an event, right? Whose event? Najee Harris's event? His family's event? What event? He doesn't acknowledge that it was whose event it was, but it was certainly an event. Now, with that, he acknowledged a superficial eye injury. That doesn't necessarily take away concerns. Superficial eye injuries can be dangerous, corneal abrasions and whatever. And we'll talk about that and what it means and why having binocular vision, 2 eyes, is very important. And we'll talk about that later and why there still is some concern. And then, of course, he's ready for the season, expected to be ready for the season. By who? By the Chargers, by the doctors, or by the agent?
Mm-hmm.
Is it expectation or hopeful? Let me tell you how this works. I know nothing about the inside of this incident. Yes, this involves the Chargers. I'm no longer with the Chargers. But when I was with the Chargers, for example, Terrence Keel, a draft pick of ours, was shot in Houston. And what happened there? Nobody knew for sure, but before the media reports and as it was going on, the teams called me and said, call his doctor, call the ER, call the people, and find out what his injuries are and what we need to do about it. And part of that is just like attorneys talk to attorneys and can get info, doctors talk to doctors. It's the same role that I played with ESPN Chief Medical Officer X Games. We'd be in Aspen. I wouldn't necessarily be doing anything, but I'd be liaisoning with the physicians in the ER to say, what's happening here. So the team knows more. The Chargers know more already. The Chargers haven't said much of anything, but I guarantee you they already know in the background. That's sort of their job. There's also security on the team who usually is an ex-police officer, the head of security, that are making phone calls to Antioch Police Department and others and doing the same courtesy there to gather as much information as possible. So the team likely already knows a little bit. We knew more about Terrence Keel than we let on. It's part of a team physician's job to find out. And he's saying ready for the start of the season. What about training camp?
It's a big gap. Yeah.
It's the 11th. The Chargers start training camp very early. Why? They're in the Hall of Fame game because of Antonio Gates. In a couple weeks, I'm going. August, I guess I get there July 31st. August 2nd is the actual induction. August 1st, the Gold Jacket dinner. The game is the 31st, I think, on Thursday. So they get a jump start to training camp on July 17th. Ian Rappaport, I believe, has indicated that he likely won't be at training camp to start. So it may be a superficial eye injury. In other words, it's not deep in the back of the eye, which hopefully means it's not a detached retina, but a corneal abrasion, whether it's, fireworks particles or, the flash, the burn, whatever it is, that is potentially significant. And you also indicated to me, is this right, that he went to 2 hospitals?
Yeah, I wanted to mention that, Doc. Cam Inman wrote helped with the Mercury News article. We've had him on the podcast before. He's helped the Niners beat writer. He said, according to multiple sources, Harris first went to John Muir Hospital in Concord and later to Stanford Hospital for treatment. It was not clear whether he went by ambulance or transferred by private vehicle to the initial first hospital.
And let me clear that up. I'm not an alarmist here. I'm not saying, oh my God, he's going to lose his eye and he had to be flown by helicopter to Stanford Hospital. It easily could be he was seen at Concord Hospital and they said, you need to see an eye specialist. And the next day or 2 days later, remember this happened on July 4th, 5th, and the news broke today. It's easily that a couple days later, his follow-up was at Stanford. So until we get more clarity there, I'm not saying he's about to lose his eye and, oh my gosh, the secondary hospital. But let's talk why do we need 2 eyes? It's for binocular vision, okay? And you can do the experiment yourself at home. When you close one eye and then close the other eye or block it off, objects move slightly, and it gives you depth perception. That's what we see around things. So if I'm looking at your face, I get the contour by seeing your right ear and left ear if we were looking at you in person with the right eye and left eye. If I just had my right eye, I wouldn't necessarily see your right ear based on the pathway if we were face to face. It gives us contour and definition. And why is that important to have binocular vision? It's not like, oh, he's got one eye out, he's okay. You can't really get depth perception. Since we're in the OR here, a good friend of mine, I won't say his name, in my residency class, whenever he was doing hand surgery or fine things, working close here, he often would go like this. And I was like, he's a friend of mine. So I was able to say, look, what's going on there? Are you autistic? Is it a nervous tick? He goes, no, I had a dog injury when I was young. I have a glass eye. And so when he's looking at fine depth things, this is how he assesses depth because he doesn't have binocular vision.
Right.
So I'm not saying Najee Harris is going to lose his eye and never have binocular vision again, but it's a big deal for what? Obviously, catching balls.
Right.
Looking at pursuit angles, judging holes instantaneously. It is, if an NFL running back were to only have one eye, they would be out of the NFL. Period. End of story, in my opinion. Now, we can look it up. Has there ever been a case of that? I don't know. So this is why this is potentially a big deal to sort out. Quite honestly, no one's seen him, right? He likely has an eye patch on, especially if it's a corneal abrasion, et cetera. Now, do we hope he's going to be ready for the start of the season? Yes. It's pretty clear he won't be there for training camp. Do we hope this is a nothing burger? Yes. and maybe this is another decade reminder, you got to be careful. And we certainly prayers out to anyone that may have lost their fingers in this. But this is not nothing just because it's superficial and he's okay for the season. For what I explained about binocular vision, depth perception, picking things up. And you can do the experiment. Put your finger out here, close one eye. You don't really get the depth perception.
Right.
Try doing, the finger to finger test or nose to finger test or whatever you want to do, when someone moves it for you with one eye. It gets very difficult to do. That's the whole point of binocular vision and one eye. So let's hope it's nothing, corneal abrasion or something that's simple, superficial, and good to go. But right now, I don't know that we have enough information to feel safe with it. We're drafting Scott Fishbowl right now. I think everyone's going to downgrade.
You got a fan question about that, actually, a fantasy question. So remember, in the past, Justin Herbert got his job with an injury as a rookie. Do you think Omarion Hampton, the rookie that the Chargers drafted, has a big chance now to take the reins that Najee Harris has taken a step back with this injury?
Well, I think it opens up the door because he's getting all the training camp reps early. Now, remember, Najee's new to the team. Yes, he's been around a little bit, but he's new. I mean, look, I'm not trying to speak for Jim Harbaugh, who was at the White House yesterday. I'm sure he was apprised of the whole situation. But I'm sure Jim's shaking his head a little like, dude, what are we doing here? Right?
Yeah.
What are we doing here? What are we doing here? I'm headed to Cooperstown next week with my 12-year-old son. And what did mom say yesterday when after work we were getting in the pool and they were jumping on some floaties and doing something? And Davis, my son, was running from the pool deck and then diving on a floaty and trying to hang on. He goes, Davis, don't slip and fall. Don't turn your ankle. You're going to Cooperstown next week. Don't do, it's 12-year-old baseball and mom's concerned. I mean, this is the NFL. I mean, in the season starting. So it's interesting here. Look, does it open up the door? It may. Look, the decision is going to be made by Harbaugh and the team, but I guarantee you the team is shaking their head a little bit at this whole situation. He's going to end up on NFI, non-football injury.
They're not going to pay him for this incident.
And what does that do? It opens up the door for the Chargers to save $9 million if he doesn't pass the physical or they go a different direction. It opens up that door. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying that he's done, but I guarantee you the Chargers spent a lot of time on this in the last few days. Now, my guess is they knew about it before news broke. The right thing to usually do is the agent says, hey, John Spanos or whoever he's talking to, FYI kind of thing, courtesy notice ahead of time. It's kind of like, once again, my son saying, Dad, I might be getting a B before the report card comes out, right? I mean, just to
soften the blow.
The blow and to show communication. And the Chargers have been working on it. They've probably said, okay, who's his doctor? They've had people calling, as we said. So they may know more, and it hopefully is nothing. But this is why it's worth a lightning pod here live before we start surgery.
Just real quick, Doc, do you think the NFL sends like a disclaimer like a week before, just after like the JPP stuff and just like, hey guys, it's 4th of July?
Well, let's put it this way. Let's say the NFL does. Yeah. First of all, it's called common sense, right?
Yeah.
I mean, does the NFL send a disclaimer every Friday in the off season? Don't drink and drive. I mean, they shouldn't need to, right? Yeah. I mean, and if they did send a disclaimer, is anyone reading it? I mean, and I'm not blaming football players. It's part of life, right? Yeah, it's part of life, and yeah, I mean, I hope players learn, and quite honestly, it's not just about the players. Let's say, I don't know what the circumstance were. I mean, commonly or not, maybe uncommonly, it's like, oh, let's have a party, and a player, not necessarily Najee, often will say, family, friends, sure, come on over, I'll host it. Sure, here's money, go get fireworks and this, that, the other. And even if they're not the ones lighting the fireworks, what about the cousins and the nephews and the whatever and the family members and guests? You want to keep them all safe too. So I think fireworks safety in general not just related to, the players themselves, which I guess you have to be very, very careful of. And like I said, hopefully this will blow over. But the reason why, let's say his vision is there, but perhaps a little bit affected with acuity. How does that affect his playing? It's a potential effect to it. I'm not saying even if he doesn't lose his eye. So yes, it does open up the door. I mean, I'm sure fantasy analysts have to be, and this is what I often ask. Okay, you got your your rankings, but what do you do for injury, right?
You got
How do
moving
you
around
change it?
constantly.
Now, this probably changes the equation, no different than any in-season injury on a week basis for DFS or fantasy. And this is why I say go to SixScore Fantasy Injury Calculator. Every week, we will give you the health of Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton, and you decide, or whoever, if you're between Jaylen Warren and Jordan Mason, or whoever you are, running back 2 versus 3, who's healthy. And it's not just the health of the running back, it's the health of their offensive line against the health of the run defense of the other team. So it's fairly specific in terms of output. I mean, last year, if like Detroit's defense, was facing Detroit with all their injuries, was potentially a pop week for whoever that player was in fantasy. So that's what we're going to do with the fantasy injury calculator there. But back to the topic of Najee Harris. Any
I got
other?
one last question, Doc. Yeah, one last question. So Anthony Davis recently just had surgery for a detached retina. So this is kind of maybe the same. That means he likely played through it at the end of the NBA season. I know there's two different sports, but is this something Najee can play through an entire season and then get surgery afterwards, or should he get the surgery now and then?
Well, being football, being the traumatic sport, if he has a detached retina, he'd need surgery now. Okay. Now, hopefully that's not the case because the agent said superficial, and detached retina I wouldn't consider superficial, right? It's on the surface or the back surface. I wouldn't consider that superficial. But I don't know what the agent considers superficial. But even with surgery, the recovery, thankfully, is fairly quick. It's just how quickly he adjusts to having perfect vision, because anything short of perfect vision is potential, especially when one eye doesn't have perfect vision, maybe doesn't focus as quickly or isn't as clear. That could affect his binocular vision, which we've talked about: pass catching, depth perception, lanes, angles for tacklers, etc., depths of holes, especially instantaneously, and that's what you need to do as a running back. So let's hope for the best for him. And the whole point of our doing this is to be early and answer questions, much like we do halftime injury chats. We got a lot new coming this year, and I think they are about ready for me. So barring any last minute questions, we'll sign off here. Anything else, Taylor?
We're ready to go. Just go to sixscore.com for all the latest information on Najee and more.
All right. Thank you, guys.